Hey, what is up everybody? I am Chance and we are back today for another episode of Our Life Beginnings, and always, let's just jump into it. Alright, so next up on our list of moments to do is talks, which I'm a little bit nervous about. What kind of talks? I hope they're not bad talks. Hopefully they're good talks. We'll see. Another placid summer day was drifting by. Your daydreams were chasing each other, none sticking around long enough to become a firm plan. But you really didn't mind that right now. A tapping worked its way into those dreams. Focusing more, you realized it was coming from your window. A grin popped up on your face as though it had been waiting all day for this moment. It's like our daily dose of Cove. Heading to the window, you could see Cove outside. His habit of climbing this way really was a true Coveism. He'd rather scale your house than wait the couple extra minutes for you to come down. You stood aside to give him space. You held a hand out to him. I held a hand out to him. We're helping him in. You offered Cove a hand to help him. Once he was mostly inside, he took it to help steady the last bit of his entrance. Though, considering how many times he'd done this, he hardly needed the help. Hey Jamie. Hey to you. You think my mom should invest in some bigger windows? Cove laughed at that and took one last look at the exclusive entrance. He hummed with a teasing look on his face. It'd make my life easier, that's for sure. Cove's voice came out quietly, with a strangely pleased smile on his face. Did something happen? Cove opened his mouth to answer, only to have your phone ringing cut him off. You both turned to where it rested a little further up on your bed. It was still face down, so you couldn't tell who was calling. It's okay. Your attention shot back to Cove. He smiled at you awkwardly. Go check. It could be important. I'll wait. Thanks. You shuffled forward and scooped the little noisemaker into your hand. You flipped it over and checked the caller ID. It's Miranda. Oh, you should answer it. I want to say hi too. With a nod, you accepted the call and set it to speaker. Hi, Miranda. Hi. There was something off about her tone. Cove met your gaze, and you saw the same confusion in his expression.
From Terri.
Have you heard from Terri at all? Or did you hear about her from Cove? Huh? No, she hasn't called me, but Cove is with me right now. Hey. Oh. Hi, Cove. Is that what you were going to say? He shook his head no, before realizing that it wasn't a good enough answer when one person couldn't actually see it. No, Terri hasn't called me today either. Is something wrong? At that, Miranda couldn't hold herself together any longer. The muffled sobs from the other side of the line were unmistakable. Terri doesn't like me anymore, if she ever did. What? That doesn't sound right. You're probably her best friend out of all of us. Yeah, why do you think that? She sniffled, and there was a pause as you could hear her shift the phone to her other hand. Terri was here the other night, watching movies with me. We were up super late. She realized her parents probably went to bed, so they couldn't pick her up. My mom and dad were definitely asleep then. Dad works early. I tried telling her it was okay to just spend the night and she could text her parents what happened, but Terri really didn't want to. You glanced at Cove. He looked equally unsure as you about where this story was going. It didn't sound like a friendship ending situation. Yeah, what the heck?
No.
I guarantee you it's a misunderstanding. It always is. I suggested things to make it easier if she was nervous, like she could sleep by herself in my room while I stayed somewhere else. Yeah. And I said we didn't have to sleep at all, We could have kept watching movies until one of our parents woke up. I wouldn't have minded. I know not everyone can do sleepovers, but Terri wouldn't even tell me what was really wrong or what I could do to help. I thought we could tell each other anything. I guess I was wrong. Did she stay in the end? No. We got too loud in the kitchen and my dad woke up. He offered to drive her home when he heard what was wrong. She texted me apologizing for my dad having to do that when he needed rest. But that was it. She isn't talking to me anymore. You could hear every bit of the tears and heartbreak in Miranda's voice. This continued to be a shock for your neighbor, but Cove recovered and spoke gently. I'm really sorry. There's no way Terri wanted to make you feel this bad. Or that she's just done with your friendship because of this. Miranda's sniffing continued. You hoped she had plenty of tissues handy. It'll be okay. I hope Terri is alright. It's really weird that she reacted like that. It's not a big deal, honestly. You weren't sure what to say. I'm going to say... So, as always, I'm torn between two. I'm torn between it'll be okay and it's really weird that she reacted like that. It's probably like the worst thing to say to someone, but I think I'm gonna say it'll be okay. It had to be. You couldn't imagine any alternative. Miranda's voice sounded a little bit more collected after finishing her story, but you knew that the crying was far from being done. I thought she'd have reached out to one of you by now. Maybe she's not talking to anyone. Yeah. Sorry for bothering you and Cove about this.
You heard from Terri?
Hey, we're here for you. Right. You can tell us things. Thank you. Not Miranda! She's the baby! Her shaking voice finally conveyed a little optimism, or at least relief that she wasn't dealing with it entirely on her own. If you do hear from her or anything, could you let me know if she's alright? We can. Thanks. Let's talk later, okay? Bye. 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 That didn't really seem like an especially productive point to end the call, though you also weren't sure where to go from there. Looking to Cove, his face seemed as lost as yours. With no alternative, you hung up and put your phone back on your bed. Cove crossed his arms, a frown creasing his face. I wonder if he's gonna start talking and then Terry's gonna call us. He began to pace the length of the room, clearly trying to put the pieces together in his head in a way that made sense. You were worried, you felt pretty confident about this working out well. It sounded like trouble to you, you weren't sure how to react. Maybe we'll do the you weren't sure how to react because I think we should be worried, but I also think that it's going to resolve itself. So maybe let's just choose the middle road and see what happens. You weren't sure how to react. It was all too sudden and unclear. The empty state of your head before learning this was not helping you now. You couldn't put two thoughts together, and flopping back on your bed, you stared into space. Sounds about right. We should probably try calling Terri. Cove's voice managed to drag you back to some grounding. He'd stopped pacing, but you still saw a perturbed look on his face. Detective Cove to the rescue? Is it really something we should get involved with right now? Cove's mouth pressed into a hard line. At the moment, it seemed like the two of you were on very different wavelengths as to how to deal with this. I want to talk to Terri. She's my friend too. Fine, then let's call her. Cove looked away and pulled his phone out. You went over and stood at his side as he was dialing. Cove let it ring, and ring, and ring, and ring. Terri didn't answer. There wasn't even an option to leave a voice message. What the heck? Okay, now this is becoming more troubling. Your shoulders slumped, and Cove looked even more troubled, if that was possible. He turned to you as if for some lifeline. Could you try calling? I'm gonna send a text, just like, hey, I was trying to reach you, call me, or something. Yeah. You took up your phone once more. Unfortunately, after another set of interminable rings, the line went dead. No answer, no voicemail. Hanging up, you saw Cove visibly deflate. He rubbed his arm, eyes distant, openly struggling with the whole affair. Let's go to Terry's house then. I don't like this at all. They're fighting, we barely know anything, and we're supposed to just wait and see? Despite it only being a minute since he texted Terry, Cove checked his phone again. He was desperate for progress, for something, and you frowned as you watched him. I understand you, Cove. You need to try to relax. You're making me anxious. There's no way Terry has answered you. They're gonna get over it, you know. He stayed silent. I'm gonna say you're making me anxious. Cove stared hard at the screen as though he was trying to will a new message to appear. As your words sank in, he forlornly let his gaze fall to the side. Cove's voice came out so small and quiet that you would have missed it if he hadn't already taken your full attention. Sorry. Aww. You nodded slowly. Cove closed his eyes, letting out a sigh as though trying to clear away pressure from inside his chest. Glancing at your own phone in vain, you considered sending a text message too, if that would even help. This was making you feel all twisted up. You could see the same sort of discomfort on Cove's face. There was something consoling in that, at least. Words drifted from his mouth like a feeble breeze. It'll be fine. It's gonna be okay. Yeah. Jamie's just yaing everything today. You could hear it in both of your voices how much you wanted to give and receive reassurance. You tried to believe the sentiments, weak as they were. Should we... What do we even say if we do hear from one of them? His pacing resumed as he attempted to answer his own question. We should probably tell them to talk to each other instead of only us. Maybe? He slowly came to another halt, like a gear winding down. We should find out Terry's side of the story. We should just comfort Miranda and let up with Terry. I don't know. We should only tell them to work it out between themselves. That's it. You wondered why you always had to come up with things. You didn't say anything. I kind of want to... I'm nosy. I think we should try and find out Terry's side of the story. Let's drive to her house. Nothing could be done until you knew what she thought of this. That much was certain. Cove nodded slightly in agreement. He doesn't look like he agrees with me. For several minutes, you both remained there in silence, drowning in your thoughts. Eventually, Cove turned around. I'm gonna text Terry that we already know what's going on. Maybe she'll have an easier time talking to us because she won't have to pretend or explain. Yeah, that might be the only way to get her attention. You can't do that. Miranda didn't say it was alright to admit she talked to us. You felt way too overwhelmed to know what to say next. I think you're pushing too much. That's not a good idea, Cove. Not at all. Why are you so fixated on this? Okay, so I'm stuck between these two right here. Because I kind of agree with Cove that might, you know, get Terry's attention. But Miranda also didn't say that it was alright to say that we talked. So if I say this one, I'm hoping that there's another way to resolve this. You can't do that. Miranda didn't say it was alright to admit she talked to us. I feel like that's right. Sorry, Cove. Miranda called you asking if Terry had opened up about it, and then she told us about what happened in private. She didn't know if Terry would be okay with any of that. That's a fair point, Cove. That's a fair point. That doesn't make it fine to do that to her. Terry isn't talking to Miranda at all. If you want to tell Terry, we could still talk to Miranda about it first. God, Cove. We could, but if Miranda wanted it to be a big secret, then she should have just said that. And if she does want to hide it, I don't think we should. You're being really mean right now. You need to just stop already. We still should call Miranda. You felt way too overwhelmed to know what to say next. Being tense doesn't mean it's okay to act like this. Oh my god. This is gonna be our first fight? I'm gonna say we should still call Miranda. Maybe. It's only fair. For a moment, Cove thought about what you said. Calmly, you added, I'm not saying we can't tell Terri ever, but we just have to talk to her about it so she understands. A small noise escaped his lips. All the frustration at the situation crumbled away from his face as he spoke softly. Thanks, Jamie. I'm glad it's not just me with all this happening. Cove took one last look at his phone and then put it away. His effort at a smile was meager, but earnest. We can just forget about it for a while. Terri will talk to us when she wants to. I don't know. I think we should have texted. Oh, I should have just went for it. You smiled just a little bit. Finally. That sounds good to me. I'd like to be alone for a while. Could you leave? You simply nodded back. That sounds good to me. And you meant it, exhaling some of your own concern away. The last thing you wanted was a fight with Cove. A silence stretched on in what felt like hours, but it likely wasn't that long before there was a knock at your bedroom door and Mom peeked in. Just wanted to check in on you. Oh, Cove, when did you get here? When she saw your morose expressions, she opened the door all the way, and the question was dropped. Ma was standing there as well. She slipped past her wife to come inside your space. What's with the long faces? Are you both okay? We're okay. Your body language could not have contradicted you more strongly, and you knew it. You couldn't even lift your eyes off the floor, as though the weight of your worry was dragging your head down. See, moms have, like, a sixth sense for this, because they always know that something is wrong. And then, like, all of a sudden, you're, like, having a problem, and then there they are. It's just like this. Miranda called earlier. She and Terri are fighting, but none of us know what's going on with Terri. Your parents exchanged a meaningful look, though its meaning was lost on you. I'm so sorry to hear there's trouble with your friends, sweetie. Is there anything we can do to help? Out of the corner of your eye, you saw Cove rub his arm awkwardly, unable to add anything. No, we're just waiting to see if Terri calls, or texts, or if Miranda does. Well, we can at least help you take your mind off of things while you're waiting. Another great idea, Lonnie. We can get the whole gang together for some quality time. Yeah. Mom gave you a soft smile and added, this will be good, especially since it might help make up for what happened at the farmer's market. Oh, interesting. I wonder if this would have been mentioned had I done this one before the farmer's market one. I mean, it would have to. Like, it probably wouldn't have been there. Yes, it'll be wonderful. I'll go see what Liz is up to right now. Excited, she fluttered a few steps away and then stopped. She pivoted on her heels and raised a single finger, flashing a big smile at Cove. And of course, Cliff will be welcome too. Knowing your family was always there for you, that couldn't be underestimated. In fact, it meant everything to you and your moms cared so much. That your moms cared so much. I really appreciate this. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. That's nice of you. That face. You're both very welcome. Don't sweat it, not so kiddos. Leave things to us. Just relax. We'll call you when it's all together. You nodded, and your moms dispersed for now, springing into action for their impromptu get-together. You flopped down on your bed, feeling like you could sink into it and disappear. Cove, meanwhile, took a spot on a chair off to the side. You sighed at the same time, and Cove's mouth pulled into a bent smile at that. He gave his phone another quick check and his eyebrows furrowed. Still nothing? Yep. This is crap, huh? Yep. Cove chewed the inside of his cheek, as if to mimic the stress that was clearly eating away at him. Cove, what's wrong? What's really wrong? One disagreement doesn't make you act like this. That got a pointed pause in his movement. Cove was carefully trying to put his thoughts together. He spoke in a fragile voice. When people you care about, when they're unhappy with each other, there's nothing you can do. At least when you're in a fight yourself, you have some responsibility, some control over it all. I wish it didn't have to happen, but that isn't possible. So, oh well, I guess. Oh, I think he's referencing his parents there. I think that's what all that is. He's always wanted to control. It all makes sense. His attempt at giving a nonchalant shrug after that was pitiable. Yeah, it makes me feel horrible too. True, but you're right that it can't be helped. It's whatever. Other people can do what they want, right? You stayed silent. I'm gonna say true, but you're right that it can't be helped. I know. He replied like he could barely muster the strength to speak. Well, we just have to focus on the things we can impact. Or at least try. You turned to Cove, hoping your eyes conveyed the message you were feeling better than your words. His gentle nod told you that they did. There was a question you had to ask. Exactly. Is it because of what happened with your parents? Cove ran a hand through his hair, a strained smile spreading across his lips. For him, this pain struck close to his heart. Just as quickly as it had come, his smile was gone, lost amidst his faraway gaze. Yeah, you got it. It's like my parents. Despite knowing him for so many years, Cove had never spoken of the years before he moved to Sunset Bird, before his parents separated in any detail. He whispered his thoughts distantly, almost unconcerned with whether you could hear them or not. They used to fight all the time. I think they got along when I was a baby. I mean, they had to have wanted to be with each other at some point. But when I was old enough to remember anything, it was really bad. There was always something wrong, and I could never help. I just wanted them to be happy. Let it out, Cove! You tried to imagine your moms breaking up, and that very idea scared you. But Cove had endured that for real. I'm sorry. Jamie, it's okay. Despite that revelation, Cove gazed reassuringly at you. It's not like that anymore. Things are so different now. I don't even really think about it. Again, the sorrow reasserted itself. When he continued, you could barely hear him. Though, I guess it's pretty obvious I haven't forgotten either. You tried to smile for him. You crossed the room and took his hand. You went over and placed a hand on his shoulder. You hugged him. So, like, I want to strike a nice balance between, like, I'm trying to get Cove to ask us out. Like, you know, I don't know, go on a date or, you know, ask if he wants to be boyfriends. So, like, I'm gonna push it a little bit, but, like, we're also still playing Jamie as, like, shy. Not shy. We're, like, not sure whether or not, like, how this is gonna go kind of thing. So we're not gonna take his hand. I actually feel like that's pretty intimate. But we are, instead of placing our hands on his shoulder this time, which we've been doing, I think, for the most part, until up here recently, we're gonna give him a hug. You hugged him. You crossed the room, picking up a little bit of speed. and Cove's eyes widen. Oh god, maybe this is gonna be more intimate than grabbing his hand. I feel like hand holding is more intimate, I don't know. He shot out of the chair and stood waiting for you with a nonplussed look. When you collided into him, wrapping your arms around his middle and knocking the air out of his lungs, all the mystery was gone. Cove squeaked. Oh. He returned the gesture longingly. Exhaling, you pressed your cheek into the warmth of his chest. The tension stuck inside you released like a river flowing into the ocean that was Cove. Oh, that was a nice sentence. The firmness of his hug told you Cove didn't plan on letting go anytime soon. You both needed the comfort and closeness for just a little bit longer. Oh! When you finally did, the two of you took a seat again, but this time side by side on your bed. Today was a lot, huh? Yeah, it was. You sat there contentedly, you leaned against him. Are we gonna be the ones making the moves? What's happening? What do I do? What do I do? Which one? We're gonna take this opportunity. You know what? We're just gonna keep tapping on the gas just a little bit. You leaned against him. Resting the side of your head onto his shoulder, you glanced up at his face. Cove watched you affectionately. In that gentle gaze, you finally felt like everything was going to be okay. No matter what happens, we can make it work. His mouth pulled into a bent smile at that. You chuckled, resting your head comfortably back on his shoulder. I think so too. And for a while you stayed like that. A comfortable quiet fell between you, and the sun fell with it. Where'd the moms go? The warming calm ended when Cove gasped sharply. You spun, half expecting to find him nursing an injury, but instead found him staring straight ahead. What? I think my phone just vibrated. Check it out. Right. He patted his pockets, fumbling in his panic, and yanked the phone out. The force of the action nearly catapulted the device out of his grip entirely. But he caught it just in time. His eyes honed in on the screen. It's Terri. Thank God. She says she's sorry. He looked back at you, eyes wide as his nerves started to fray once more. What should I say? I don't know. Give it a second. I need to think. Tell her to call us. Ask her what's going on. Ask if she's talking to Miranda. You clammed up. Tell her to call us. Okay. He flashed you a shaky smile as he began to type. You suspected that he'd had similar thoughts himself, but wanted the reassurance of a second opinion. Cove's phone buzzed nearly as soon as the message was sent. Ah, it's Terri again. She's talking to us. You leaned in, watching the conversation unfold on Cove's screen. She's actually gonna call. Cove held his breath as you waited. Though he was good with people, he'd never been at ease managing conflict. His phone rang out. Cove jammed the answer button. He switched the phone into speaker mode, allowing you to participate in the conversation. But despite his immediate reaction, his voice lacked the same resolve when he spoke. Hey. It was tentative, a white flag fluttering in the wind. Jamie's here too. Hi, we've been worried about you. Hey, buddies. Terry's voice was barely recognizable without her usual quick patter and energy. Are things okay? I don't know. Probably not. Cove tensed, his free hand coiling into an anxious fist. Can you talk to us about what happened? You heard Terry sigh over the phone as she unburdened herself. Pretty much, I was at Randy's house. We decided to watch some movies she super liked that I'd never even seen before. Turns out there's a lot of those. We watched one, then another, and another. We were having so much fun. Each time one finished, she had another one to share with me. I didn't really think about the time. I only wanted to say yes to Randy and watch her movies. She spoke wistfully, but her words were full of affection. It was Randy, you know? I wasn't thinking about my schedule or what time it was. I get it. Then, I finally saw the time, and oh no, it was way too late. I already knew I couldn't stay. She took a deep breath, her voice becoming softer when she resumed talking. I was so stressed out. I just couldn't deal with it. Miranda wanted to help. She kept coming up with ways to make it better and trying to figure out why I was so upset and stuff. I was trying to answer her questions, and there were so many, but I couldn't really answer all of them. I didn't even know why some of her ideas didn't work with me. It made my head ache. I still had the first problem, and Randy there, trying to help, blasting all these questions and suggestions at me faster than I could even think. She gulped audibly, sniffing. I got frustrated and told her to just leave me alone, but then she wanted to talk about why I wanted that, and we started having a fight in the kitchen. It woke Randy's dad up. We told him about how I wanted to go home, but my parents couldn't get me, so Mr. Eckert offered to do it. That's nice of him. Terri groaned. I know. I accepted because I definitely couldn't stay then, not after throwing a racket and turning it into a big deal. But I feel awful and embarrassed. Why did I yell at Randy and hurt her feelings? And I made her dad lose sleep by waking him up and having to drive me home. What do you say after that? I have no idea. I don't know where to start, and I don't want to make it worse by saying the wrong thing and fighting again. So, I'm not talking. I actually understand Terri so much. It's just easier to just not deal with it. But guess what? You eventually have to deal with it. Terri, Randy isn't mad that you didn't want to stay or that you fought. She just wants to feel like you can talk to her. I mean, you can say whatever you want. She'll listen. Not talking to her at all is pretty much the only wrong way to go about it. It's true. Terri lamented mournfully on the other end of the line, but he had a point. Unless she faced Miranda again, there would be no resolution. You looked at Cove, hunched over the phone, staring pensively into it and searching for a solution. This couldn't be solved with the other key party missing. But what if you brought them in? Your phone was still free. Good idea, Jamie. You suggested calling Miranda up now. You rung Miranda without saying a word. We are going to suggest it. We're not just going to do it. What if we call Miranda? That way you could talk to her but wouldn't have to do it alone. That blink. Cove brightened up. The concerned furrow in his brow, which had taken root when Miranda first called, eased. That could work. Terri, are you up for it? She made a noise that wasn't a word but nevertheless conveyed her hesitation and worry. But she brought it to a close with a decisive exhalation, as if pushing all the negative thoughts from her body. Alright, I'll do it. Cove nodded. Now that you'd received approval from everyone, you pulled out your phone and called Miranda. You set it to speaker and waited for her to pick up. Luckily, she did. Hi, Jamie. Her voice was still distant, as if her thoughts were elsewhere, but it was loud enough for your needs. Hi, you're on speaker. Terri is on speaker too, on Cove's phone. Oh. She paused while she digested this information. You watched the phone screen, hoping that she wouldn't hang up as a result. Oh, really? Yep, it's really me. Can you hear my voice all the way from your house to theirs and then mine? I can. You and Cove exchanged looks, waiting for the wall between them to break and wondering who would be the one to do it. As the quiet dragged on, you caught Cove chewing his cheek. He must have weighed up the same question as you, whether to encourage the conversation along or leave Miranda and Terri to resolve it themselves. The answer came in the form of one sniff, followed by another from Cove's phone. Sorry, Randy. I hope you still like me. What? You're the one acting as if you didn't like me. Her tone was defensive, no doubt a result of her wounds from last night still being raw. No way! Everyone likes Randy. You're wonderful. Oh! Your eyes met Cove's. His phone was tilted towards you, capturing the call indirectly. You moved your phone closer to his, hoping that the signal was strong enough to convey every nuance of tone. Cove did likewise, bringing his cell right next to yours, even bumping against it as he shifted his grip. I didn't know what to say. That's the only reason I wouldn't talk to you. If I had known the answer, I'd have told you right away. Miranda murmured on the other end of the line. You didn't want to stay. Anything I tried to do bothered you, and you could have told me you didn't know. Yeah, I think I was angry at myself. I did a dumb thing and I didn't want to help with it. I wanted to be mad and just deal with it myself. It made me keep doing dumb things. Oh. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet, as tender and vulnerable as the words. Staying up late, watching stuff was all my fault. I had to find a way to fix it. That's what I thought, anyway. But I should have given you space. I'm sorry for being so pushy and sensitive. Hardly. Miranda Eckert having a flaw? I've never heard such a crazy thing. You know what? They're my favorites. They're my favorites. No one beats them. Cove, Jamie, sorry. Baxter, sorry. These two are the two most precious little things. Miranda let out a ghost of a giggle. Cove cleared his throat. Maybe you should call each other now? Sorry. Can do. Thanks for giving me the kick in the butt to do this already. Randy Mandy, I'm gonna call you right now. Bye, Jamie and Cove. She hung up after squeezing in another quick bye, though not giving you or Cove room to respond in kind. Miranda laughed, the noise tinkling quietly like wind chimes in a summer breeze. Thank you for listening and helping. I'm gonna hang up now so I can answer Terry's call. Bye. Bye. And good luck. Bye. Talk to you soon. Miranda hung up, still chuckling softly as your call ended. The room felt emptier without the other voices in it. Cove expelled a sigh that crashed through the newly fallen silence. He dropped his arms to his sides, letting his head hang down like a puppet at rest. Thank God. That shouldn't have involved, or they shouldn't have involved us in that. I'm so relieved it's okay. You were simply happy your friends had made up. The day's events had drained you. You were content now that Cove seemed at ease again. I'm so relieved it's okay. Cove scratched at his face, his expression cloudy. I think I need to find better ways for dealing with conflict because that was awful. We could all probably do better at that. I think you did okay given the circumstances. Yeah, I think that would help. You didn't comment. We could all probably do better at that. Cove meekly smiled as he rubbed his eyes, wariness creeping over him, and mumbled his next words. We can talk about it another day. Conflict resolution methods? Huh? Oh no, forget it. It's what he wanted to talk about! Your eyebrows rose and then a light bulb went off in your head. Before Miranda called, didn't you say there was something you wanted to say? Cove's original visit had been thrown so off kilter that it was a struggle to wind your memory back to when he'd first turned up. Now you did, though. You remembered that he had been perky when he'd arrived this afternoon. Was it good news? Cove brushed his hands against his now folded arms shyly. Well, yeah, maybe. I'm not exactly sure it counts as news or even good. It just is what it is. I'm happy about it, though. You were curious, but you didn't want to push Cove if he didn't want to speak about it. You don't have to say anything, but if it makes you feel good, I think that it is good news. Cove chuckled awkwardly, a hand creeping up to ruffle the hair on the back of his head. It's fine. If you want to hear, I can tell you. Yes. He shifted on his feet, as if a different posture might give him the support he needed for the conversation. I didn't want to make it a big deal, but I kind of, well, not kind of. I just know what my sexuality is now. Oh. A real subject change, huh? He chuckled. True, it was unexpected, but you were excited that Cove had come to understand himself more, and glad he wanted to share that with you. That's great. Tell me more. Cove drew a breath, straightening up. I'm demisexual, so, you know, most of the time, I don't really have those kind of feelings. Physical wants and stuff. It's only in some situations, when I'm already really emotionally and romantically connected to someone, that I start to ever think about anything sexual, and it's only with them. I hadn't heard the term until pretty recently, and it just made a lot of sense once I knew what it meant. I had a word that fit how I felt. And I'm pan-romantic, cause I've never had a preference for a specific gender or anything, so yeah. That makes sense. Cove looked down at the floor, being so open and direct about a matter that personal, which you were sure he spent a long time trying to figure out, seemed to be kind of weird for him. Despite that, there was a small, proud smile on his face, and when he looked up again, his gaze was steadfast. Yeah, and I also want to point out, this is why games like this are important for people. Because knowing is half the battle, and trying to figure out like where you're coming from. Like if you don't have the words or like the definitions and stuff like that, then you may not know, and you may never know. It's incredible the strides that we are all making as humans, finally, at least here in in my neck of the woods in the United States. It's becoming more and more and more okay for people to explore and be who they are and be themselves. And games like this coming out and people being able to educate themselves on what all of this stuff means only progresses that even further and helps people out. So big shout out to Patch Games for making this game at all, and also making it accessible, because it's free except for the DLCs, which I should have paid for by now, but I haven't yet, but I will. At least donate money to them, because this is important. Games like this are so freaking important. So despite that, there was a small proud smile on his face, and when he looked up again, his gaze was steadfast. All this talk of Cove's sexuality made you reflect about your own. Your feelings on yours hadn't wavered. Your view had evolved since you were younger. I'm gonna say your feelings on yours hadn't wavered. Cove had known for years now. It was heartwarming that he had reached a point where he felt similarly capable of discussing his own. You felt even closer. You could tell that Cove felt like it had been an emotionally draining day that had now come to a close. Everything wrapped up neatly with a bow on top. Where's the moms? You had some good talks with your friends and with each other. A lot had been brought out into the light, and you'd come out of it not only knowing each other better, but yourself too. But there was still something that Cove didn't know. Something that had gnawed at you many times over the years. You'd never told Cove about how you'd first met his dad. I'm not going to tell him. I'm not going to. Because the game keeps introducing this problem in like really tender important scenes, I'm not going to do it. You'd always held it back from him, unsure of how he would take the revelation. His dad seemed to have done the same, as Cove didn't seem to have heard of it from Mr. Holden either. You decided that the secret had hung over you long enough. Maybe you'll tell him someday, but not today. You felt it didn't matter anymore. There was no need to rake up old drama. Maybe I'll tell him someday, but that day is not today. The day had been sufficiently dramatic without introducing the oldest skeleton in your closet. It could wait until another time. Hey, we should probably head downstairs soon, if your moms are still wanting everyone to get together. Yeah, that's right. With a renewed spring in your step, you led the way out of your room. You got downstairs to find the others already assembling and waiting. Hello. Hey. Good to see you both. Hi. Here we were trying to corral everyone into a group, but the two of you were already upstairs this whole time. Hey Dad, we had some stuff to talk about. Yeah. But we made it, so what's the plan? How about cards? There was a murmur of interest from the others. You were keen to play, that was fine with you. You'd play along with the others, you didn't really want to play cards. Yeah, we want to play cards. It was very nearly, but not quite, unanimous. Mr. Holden demurred. I think I'll sit this one out. Cause you don't want to get your butt kicked again. That's what it's about, Mr. Holden. I know you. Where's the fun in that? Join in. Yes, I know there's a lot of people, but we can make it work. Mr. Holden shrunk into himself, embarrassed by their attention. Dad, you love playing cards. We do it at our house all the time. Yeah, remember the time I played over there? Those were serious games. We made bets with real money and everything. Dad? Mr. Holden broke under the combined force of everyone's attention. Cove and Jamie, you're adults now. You deserve to know the truth. I used to throw the card game so you could win. Sure, I don't believe you for 2 seconds, buddy. I put up a good fight, but I always made sure to lose a lot more rounds than I won. He toyed with the end of his ponytail, clearly distressed at revealing this bit of info. He did have a history of bad surprises, so that may have been why. I know people want to be taken seriously, and fake wins don't mean as much, but I couldn't help myself. It's so much better when everyone else got the chance to be victorious. Kyra knew and went along with it. Cove laughed in disbelief that this was the thing his dad stressed about hiding, after the other stunts he'd pulled over the years. So what? Lots of parents do that. I hadn't guessed it, sure, though looking back it makes sense. That's right. What's the big deal, Cliff? You can finally take the kids' gloves off and give them a run for their money. Mr. Holden smiled coyly, his gaze lowering. I'm not sure that's a good idea. And why not? He waved his hands expansively, the movements fluid and vague. It's just, actually, I am something of a card shark. I used to make lots of fast cash on games. Casual players don't have a shot unless it's a game of pure luck. Cove's jaw hung open, his wide eyes fixed on his father. Really? There was a touch of amazement, even admiration, nestled among the shock. The other members of the Pumpernickel family exchanged looks, ranging from Liz's disbelief to Mom's intrigue, with Ma somewhere in the middle between the two. You can't simply make a claim like that and expect us to go along with it. Let's see you back it up, Shark Man. Mr. Holden gave her a crooked smile, his demureness quickly being replaced with the confidence of someone very skilled or very misguided. You sure about that? Definitely. We've got to see this so-called non-casual player in action. Well, I might be able, though who knows? Maybe I've gotten rusty. His coyness continued to rile the gang up, and he was getting a kick out of it now. Come on, please. Alright, I can dust off the old tricks. Great. Cove beamed at his father while Mom clapped Mr. Holden on the back. Liz started off to get a deck of cards while the rest of you settled in for the game. Hands were dealt. Mr. Holden wasted no time proving his words true, wiping the floor with all of you. Alright then. You played several rounds, even switching games, but none of you were a match for him. That was how the alliance came to be forged. The rest of you joined forces against Mr. Holden only, just to try increasing the odds of beating him. With your combined efforts, you pulled out a few victories, yet it was still a challenge. He was clearly a professional. If these were his skills now, rusty with disuse, you couldn't even imagine what a deadly opponent he had been in the past. Despite that, you still had fun. Working cooperatively actually fostered a sense of camaraderie with the others. Mr. Holden didn't appear fazed by this strategy. You actually wondered whether the increased challenge made it more interesting for him. You spent the rest of the afternoon together with your family and the Holdens, having fun. It was an interesting evening for sure, with many discoveries for everyone. It was freeing, and yet simultaneously you felt more tied together than you had been before. Alright, so that is that. That was an incredibly cute, emotional little snippet of Jamie's life. I feel like we got, like the game said, we definitely got closer with everyone. It was really, really cute. I'm glad Miranda and Terri made up. But anyways, if you enjoyed this, leave me one of those thumbs ups and let me know your thoughts and feelings about this episode down below. And if you want to keep seeing more content like this, please hit that beautiful, lovely red subscribe button. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Bye!